Hello everyone. 2 years back I made a video on GPS tracker, like how you can build a GPS tracker using Raspberry Pi and a Neo 6M GPS module. Now in these 2 years, many things have been changed. Like for example, that time I used Python 2, but nowadays people don't use Python 2, they are using Python 3. Also at that time I have used a library called PubNow, and that library also has been changed. So it seems like that very particular setup is not working, or it's very hard to work with that setup. Like people need to change a lot of things. That's why I get many requests like please change it up, please make a new video, and like please update the codes and all that things. Thus I thought, why not making a new video on this topic, and this time we will make it even better. So in this video I am going to show you how you can build a GPS tracker using Raspberry Pi and Neo 6M GPS module with Python 3. And in this video, we are going to use JavaScript, we are going to use Firebase and Google Maps API. So we are not going to use like any third-party library like PubNub. So this time, and I think many of you are already familiar with Firebase and JavaScript. And even if you are not a problem, I'm going to start everything from very scratch. And also, like many of you have problem like using Neo 6M GPS module, like you don't know how to use Neo 6M GPS module Raspberry Pi, and you face many problems. So I will also discuss about all the problems you can get and how to solve those things. So we are ready to start, but before we see how to build this, let me show you the demo.
So as you can see here, I'm using the setup, and I am actually using Raspberry Pi 3 with the GPS tracker here, and I'm powering the whole setup using a power bank. Okay, and for the internet I'm using my phone hotspot. Okay, so basically the whole setup is connected with my phone hotspot, and the laptop screen you can see, so basically that is connected to my home Wi-Fi. So it is working over the over the WAN. Okay, so basically you can track the GPS tracker from anywhere in the world, and as you can see, so I am going to a place and coming back to the same initial position. So as you can see, it can track it properly.
So guys, this is how the end product will gonna look like. So now let's get started. Okay, so let's talk about the hardware first. So here to show you how the connection, I'm going to use Raspberry Pi 0, but you can use Raspberry Pi 3, Raspberry Pi 4 or any other Raspberry Pi you want. Okay, I haven't tried with Pico, but remaining 0, Pi 3 and Pi 4, you can use it. Okay, now here I have the Neo 6M module. Now at first I'll just connect this together. So here using in this way. So now I have connected them together. Now you need to connect the Neo 6M module with the Raspberry Pi. Now the connection is pretty simple. So in Neo 6M we have VCC, RX, TX and ground. Okay, now VCC will go to 5 volts in Raspberry Pi, ground will go to ground in Raspberry Pi. The RX will not go to anywhere. We don't need the RX of the Neo 6M module to connect with anything. The TX of the Neo 6M module will go to the RX of Raspberry Pi. Okay, so this is all about the connection. Okay, and in Raspberry Pi, if you see, you can also see in the diagram, but here the first pin. So in the right side, the first pin is 5 volt, second pin is also 5 volt, the third pin is ground, the fourth pin is TX, and the fifth pin is RX. Okay, so here in the fifth pin RX, we are going to connect the TX of the module. So let me just connect them. So here I go the VCC, TX and the ground. Similarly, here I'll connect the VCC with one of the 5 volt pins, the ground with the third pin is ground, and the TX to the fifth pin, which is basically RX of Raspberry Pi. Okay, so as you can see, this is how it is looking like currently, and this is all about the connection you really need to do. Okay guys, so now as we have saw like the hardware setup, now there are a few things I need to talk with you. So in my last video also I discussed about this hardware setup, but many people like had few problems. So I am to discuss with you that if you are facing these problems, how to solve. So the very first thing is, after you will turn the Raspberry Pi on, there is a LED in the Neo 6M GPS module. Like in my case it's a blue LED, in your case it can be a red LED. That LED should blink. Okay, and if your LED is not blinking, that means your GPS module is not getting the data, the GPS data. Okay, now it's not that you will just plug the Pi and your GPS module is going to blink. Not like that. It will take few minutes to get the signal But even if you are not getting signal after a few minutes, or maybe you waited for quite a long amount of time and still you are not getting the signal, then there is a problem. Okay, so what can be the problem? The very first problem can be power. So maybe your Raspberry Pi, maybe the module is not getting enough power. So make sure you are powering your Raspberry Pi using a proper adapter. Here I recommend you to use the official Raspberry Pi adapter, or an adapter which can provide at least 3 ampere of current. Okay, this is the very first thing. Second thing is you check the connection between the Raspberry Pi and the Neo 6M GPS module, the VCC connection and the ground connection. Make sure that the Neo 6M module is getting proper voltage. So even if you have a multimeter, check that if it is getting 5 voltage or not. You just use the VCC and ground pin to check. Okay, if it is getting proper power. Now the next problem can be, maybe you are using this module inside your home. Now if you are using inside your home, there is a chance that the GPS module will not get signal. Okay, so what you have to do, you have to go to window side, maybe from where you can see the clear sky, or you go outside your home, so your module will be under the open sky. Then it will get signal easily. Okay, so if you are not getting the signal, then go outside or maybe window side, and then you check, you wait for a few minutes again and you check if it is getting the signal or not. Even after these two things, if you are not getting the signal or the LED is not blinking, in that case there might be some other problem. So you check, maybe your this Neo 6M module is like damaged or something, but there is some problem. Okay, so you need to fix that before you start doing the programming, because there is no connection between the LED blinking and coding. Okay, so if your LED is not blinking, that means your GPS module is not getting data. So if it is not getting data, then there is no meaning doing all the programming. Okay, so at first you have to make sure your module is getting data, so the LED is blinking in the module. Okay, if the module has a LED. Now there are few module version I know where you don't have LED. In that case it's fine, but if your module has a LED, it should blink. That means you are getting the data, and then only you can proceed doing all the programming and any other things. Okay,
software part, the first thing is we have to install the Raspberry Pi OS. So for that, if you just go to Raspberry Pi OS, so there is a software using which you can install a Raspberry Pi OS. For example, if you go to the official site of Raspberry Pi OS, here you are going to get this Raspberry Pi imager. You just install it. Okay, I guess I already have it. So you install it and then you will get something like this. Okay, then you just insert a memory card, then you choose the OS. Now I am using Raspberry Pi OS 32-bit, the latest version. So in my previous videos many people ask which is the version of OS you use. So currently today's date, this is the latest version I'm using, Raspberry Pi OS 32-bit. Okay, and you choose the OS, then you choose the storage. In my case I don't have any memory card inserted, and then you click in write. It will take hardly, depending on the memory card speed, 20-30 minutes it may take. Okay, and then when it's ready, then you insert the memory card in your Raspberry Pi. You can use a HDMI cable to basically get into the Pi, or if you are not don't want to use HDMI cable, keyboard, mouse, then you can use SSH to get into it. Now if you don't know how to set up your Raspberry Pi without using keyboard, mouse, all these things, so there is a video in my channel in which I have shown you like how you can set up your Raspberry Pi without any kind of screen, keyboard, mouse. So link I'll just put in the description, you can watch that. So after you have set up your Raspberry Pi and your Raspberry Pi is ready, then we have to get into the Pi. Now for that, here I'm going to use my terminal. Okay, now if you are in Windows, you can use PuTTY. In Linux and Mac you can use terminal, or maybe you can use direct HDMI connection, BNC, whatever you want. So in Mac I'm going to use SSH. Pi is the username, so Pi the IP of the Pi, so the local IP is 192.168.43.63. okay, here I have to put my password. So now I am inside my Pi, not yet, but yes, now I'm inside my Pi. Let me make it a little bit bigger. Also let me increase the font size so that you can see it. Now I guess you can see it properly. Okay, so now as we have set up everything, we know how to set up the hardware, everything. So I am assuming that currently your GPS, the module, the LED in the module is blinking. Now we are ready to set up the software part. Now for setuping, I recommend you guys to go to this website. This is this blog I write 2 years back. But for the software part, like coming to the how to set up the GPS module, things haven't changed. Nothing has been changed. So we can still use the same method we are going to use. So I wrote it 2019, but the same method we need to still use it. So the very first thing is we have to go to the bootconfig.txt. So let me copy. So I'll just copy commands from this blog and I'm just use it here. So let me paste it here. Now this is the boot config file. You go to the end of the file. Okay, you go to end of the file and these 5 lines you need to add here. So these 5 lines are already mentioned here. So these 5 lines you need to add, and after you add those, not this one. So after you add those lines, you can press Ctrl X and then Y, enter. So it will going to save your file. Okay, now as I am using Nano, this is how here I have to save it. Okay, this is the first thing you need to do. The second thing is here also you will see like how things like every screenshot is attached here, so you can see it. Now second thing is we also need to change our CMD line backup. So CMD line file we need to change, which is boot CMD line. So here what we are doing, we have to create a backup of the file. So for example, let me just execute this command. So if you see here, what we are doing is sudo cp bootlive cmd.txt. So that means we are creating backup of the CMD line txt. So if anything goes wrong, you will have a backup file. This is just for safety purpose. So if you enter, it is going to create a CMD line backup.txt. Okay. The next is we are going to edit the CMD line txt file. Okay. Now let me paste it here. Now here again, what you can do is here you can delete everything whatever written inside the file in your case, and you can put whatever written here. Okay, so this whole line you can put it here, and actually here I have already pasted this line, so again I'm not doing it, but you have to paste the whole line written here. You delete this, you delete whatever inside this file and you paste this whole line. Okay, these few things you need to do. Okay, now basically here what we are doing is basically Raspberry Pi OS basically use UART as a serial console. Okay, now we have to turn off that functionality. Okay, else we cannot get the data from the GPS. Okay, GPS module. So that's the reason here what we are doing, we are basically stopping that functionality. Okay, so after you did this thing, you have to do a sudo reboot. So you will reboot it. Finally, after this, after doing this, now here the part, now after you do all these things, now as we have already disabled the UART, now we will be able to get the data from GPS module. Okay, now you can use this command sudo cat dev ttyama0 to see if you are getting the data or not. So let me first clean my screen. So this is the command you need to use, sudo cat and then dev/ttyama0. Now ttyama0 is the port. So basically dev/ttyama0 is the port in which your GPS module has been connected, and your cat basically is going to reading the data from that port. So whenever your Raspberry Pi will send some, not Raspberry Pi, your GPS module will send some data, we are going to read that data through the port. This is what we are doing. Okay, so if I press enter, so you see we are getting a lot of data. Now if this data doesn't really make sense to you, it's fine. Okay, because this is the raw data. We will take this data and we are going to parse it in Python, and then from there we are going to get the latitude and longitude. So if we just, okay, let me first stop it. For example, if you see GPRMC, here you see these are actually lat long data. Okay, but these are not in the format we normally see. So for that reason we need to parse it. But basically using this raw data we can parse it and we are going to get the latitude and longitude. Okay, make sure you are getting this thing. So whenever you are issuing this command sudo cat /dev/ttyama0, you must have to get this output. If you are not getting it, that means you are not getting data from the GPS module. And if you are not getting it, there is, you cannot, if you go to use Python, you are not going to get the data. Okay, so you must have to see data when you are issuing this command, and if after you see data here, then only you go to next step, you write Python code and everything. Okay, if you are not getting data in this step, make sure you are doing everything right in the software part. You have modified each and every file properly, saved file properly, check your connections, that your connections are fine or not. You check that your Raspberry Pi is getting enough power or not, like check everything. Your that LED is blinking or not, check everything. Okay, because in this step you must have to get the data, then only go to next step. Okay, now as we are getting the data, now we need to do few things. Now what we have to do is here, Now so here we have to do LSL def. So using this we are going to see the ports. So let me again leave my screen. So LSL dev, this is using this command we are going to see all the available ports. Now there are a lot of ports. What you need to see is this part. You need to see that CDL0 pointing to TTY AMA0. You have to see which port CDL0 is pointing to. So here as you can see, CDL0 is pointing to TTY AMA0. Okay, and CDL1 is pointing to TTY S0. Now if you go to here, so as you can see in the screenshot also you can see CDL0 TTY S0 and CDL1 TTY S0. Okay. So if you see something like this where your CDL0 is pointing to TTY AMA0, in this case you need to issue these two commands. Okay, what they will do, I will come. If you see something else, if you see CDL0 is pointing to TTY S0, not AMA0, in that case you need to issue these two commands. It's important. So very rare case where you will going to get this. If you have a very old Pi OS, then maybe you can get this. But if you're using the almost like if you're using a Raspberry Pi 2-3 years old, like maybe Raspberry Pi 3 you are using, in that case very rarely you are going to get this. The most chances are you are going to get CDL0 TTY AMA0. CDL0 is basically pointing to TTY AMA0. In that case you need to issue these two commands. Now why you need to issue these two commands? We need to actually disable the console here. Okay, so you see in the last command in terminal we wrote that basically we using cat we read the data. Okay, so we are reading the data in console, right? So console is reading the data. But now what I want my Python code to read the data. So if I want my Python code to read the data, I have to disable console from reading the data. So that's what we are doing. So sudo system, so basically systemctl stop serial getty @ama0.service, and then you are basically doing disable. So stop will do what? It will stop the service for temporary, what I can say, like for temporary amount of time, and disable will permanently disable it. Okay, but it doesn't mean you cannot start it, never. Now, not like that. You can again start it using the start command. Okay, so these two commands you need to issue. Now let me copy it. Okay, and paste it here. So here I have stopped it, and now here I am going to disable it. Okay, so now it has been disabled. Now if you see, what you need to do is, now you are done. Now this whole setup is done, and now we are ready to write the Python code. Now again, what we have did in this section is at the very beginning we installed the OS. The second thing is you have to change that cmd line file. You have to change that boot config file because you want to disable UART. Okay. The next thing is you are checking if your GPS module, you are getting the data from GPS module in the console using the cat and by reading the port. Then as currently console is reading the data, you need to stop console from reading the data so that your Python program can read it. That's why here you have disabled these two services. Okay. And finally, after you disable these two services, now you are ready to write a Python code so that your Python code can read directly from the port itself. Okay, and then it can send the data. So here what I'll do, I'm going to go to the desktop, and there I'm going to create a new directory called GPS tracker. Okay, now let's just get into this folder, GPS tracker. Okay, now we are ready. Now we have to write the Python code. Now for all the codes, you can just go to my GitHub repo, and there you are going to get it. So this is the link will be in the description as always. Now here if you see, you are going to find two Python files, and there will be one CSS, one HTML file. Okay. Now if you see, the Python files are, one is called GPSprint.py, and then there is GPSSend.py. Now at first we are going to look in the GPSprint.py. And now this is as it looks like. Okay, so here we are using two libraries, which is CDL, and there is PyNMEA2. Now it is Python 3. So like I said, in the last video I made 2 years back, it was on Python 2. So basically I used few others library, and now people don't use Python 2 that much. So that's why now we are using the latest version of Python. So let me show you the exact version I am using in my, okay, just let me just make it full screen, and yeah, now I guess it's feasible. Yes. Okay, so now if we type Python 3, we can see it's Python 3.9.2, which is the latest version of Python. And this is the code. So now let's look at the code. So if you see here, here we are importing these two libraries. Now PyNMUA2 you can simply install by pip install. So for example, here if I have to install it, so it's already installed in my case, but let me just make it a little bit bigger. Yeah, this is fine. So here I will simply write pip3 install PyNMEA2, which I already have installed. Oh, sorry, I'm inside Python, so I need to get out of it. Yeah, this is fine. So here I'm going to write pip3 install PyNMEA2. So here I have already installed it, but in your case you can just install PyNMEA2 using this command. It will take some time, but PyNMEA2 will get installed. So in the meantime, just like so, as you can see, the requirement already satisfied. So it's not going to install here because it's already installed. But in your case, it will get installed. Okay. Now if you look at the code, it's pretty simple. So here we are defining the port, which is TTY-AMA0. Then here we are just using the baud rate 9600. There is a timeout, and we are using that port. Now PyNMEA2 is basically used to parse NMEA sentences. So here from our GPS module, we are going to get some raw data. Now we cannot use that raw data because we are not going to get, what we need is just latitude and longitude. Okay, so we don't need that raw data. So what we'll do, we'll get the raw data, and then we are going to parse that data using PyNMEA2. And from that, we are going to extract the lat and long, because that's the thing we only want. So here, as you can see, we are doing the parsing. We are reading the data. Here, one thing in Python 2, we don't need to decode the data, but in Python 3, actually, we need to decode the data. So here I'm decoding it, and then I am just checking for GPRMC. Okay. Now GPRMC, so we already saw how the raw data looks like. Now whenever I will have a raw data starting with GPRMC, that means in that data, or like in that particular sentence, I have my lat and long data. And then whenever I will have the GPRMC, I am going to extract the lat and exact the LNG. So latitude I am extracting, and I am putting that into lat, and longitude I am putting inside LNG. So in these two variables, I'll have my data. Then I'm finally just creating a sentence to print it, and finally I'm printing it. So it will print like latitude equal to the lat value, and then the longitude equal to the long value. This is just what's going to happen here. Okay, it's very simple. Now let me copy it. You can also clone the repo. I'm just copying it here. Okay, let's make it full screen. Let's create a new file called nano gpsprint.py. So here I'm going to paste the data here. I'm going to save it. And here we have saved it. Now it's time to run. Now we have to run with not Python. We have to use Python 3 gpsprint.py. Now as here I'm running it, as you can see, we are getting the data. See, so after 0.5 milliseconds, we are going to just get the data in this way. Okay. So latitude, longitude, and it's not changing because basically my Raspberry Pi, I'm not, it's just static. So that's why you're getting the same lat and long, though there will be little difference. So as you can see, there will be little difference based on the accuracy, but this is how it's working. So in our Python 3, we are getting the GPS data. Okay, so it's working just fine. Now, as we are getting the data in Python 3, we can use a lot of things to send the data to the web server. We can use Socket.io. We can use there are many things we can use. Last time you used the API called PubNub, but this time we are going to use, like I already mentioned, we are going to use Firebase. Let me So now as we are getting the data, we have to create an account in Firebase. Now why I'm using Firebase is because obviously we can use Firebase for free. You don't need to pay for it. Firebase is kind of like, many of you I think already are familiar with Firebase, and it's easy. Okay, it will hardly take 5 to 10 minutes to set up Firebase. And with Firebase, the main advantage here will be like, you don't need to host your what I can say, the web pages or basically the HTML CSS code you are writing. You don't need to host it somewhere. What you can simply do, you can just open the HTML page in any place, in your laptop, in your tab, in your mobile phone, whenever you can open it, and it's going to fetch the data from Firebase. So you don't need to actually host it somewhere. If you want, you can definitely host it, but it's not mandatory. You can open it anywhere, it is going to work. So I'll show you how it's working or not. But the first thing we have to do is we have to create a Firebase account. So Firebase account, you don't need to create, like you already will have a Google account. You can just log in Firebase with that account. So here, as you can see, so I have already logged in. So after you just log in with your Google account, you just go to console. Okay. Now here I already have few, so one project called GPS Tracker, but again I'm going to create a fresh project and show you how it works. So you create a new project. We have to give it name. So let's say I'm going to give it a name, GPS Tracker 2, which is fine. Enable Google Analytics, we don't need it, so let's just create it. So it will take some time to create the project. Now after creating the project, we only need a single service, which is the real-time database. So what will happen, your Raspberry Pi will send the data, your database will store the data, and your web page will fetch the data from the database. That's what's going to happen. Okay. Now here we are inside our so as you can see, this is how it looks like now. So before you do anything, let me enable the real-time database. So in the left side you can see real-time database. You click in that and it will open. Okay, as you can see, this is how it looks like. So is real-time create database, you click in create database. You have to select the location of the database. For me it's fine. It's important, start in lock mode. No, we are going to start in test mode. Okay, so we are just starting with test mode so that we can read and write data easily, and it will be easier for us because it's a test project. Obviously it's not a, what I can say, like we are just doing testing here. But yes, if you are going for a final product or final device stuff, then you have to go for the lock mode. Okay, but that's a separate thing anyways. Okay, so now here we are, we have the real-time database. You don't need to do anything else here, it's totally fine. Okay, you don't need to create any row, any data. Now yes, definitely if you are planning to track your previous records and stuff, then it's different, then you have to do a lot of things. But here we are not building anything complicated like that. We are being very simple. It's just a real-time tracking. Your Raspberry Pi sends the data and your database will only consist of only single coordinates. So for example, at a time your this real-time database will only have one latitude and one longitude, nothing else. Okay, so that's, you are just tracking the real-time location. You are not going to track any history, previous, nothing. You are just going to track the real-time location. So maybe in future we are going to work with the history location also, like where you have a record of like previously and stuffs. But that's a separate thing. For now, just the real-time location. Okay. Now it's done. Now what we need to do is we will go to project overview. Here you will see, you get started by adding Firebase to your app. You click in this one, web, because we are building a web app, not Android, not iOS. For now it's just a web, so you click in here. App name, we have to give it an app name. Yeah, so let me give it the same name, GPS Tracker 2, which is going to be fine. GPS Tracker 2, GPS Tracker 2. Register app. So it's listing the app. We don't need to do any npm because we are not going to use Node.js or anything like that. But yeah, this is the thing you need to store, this whole part. This is very important. Okay, this whole part. So Firebase config, you just need to copy all these things because these things we need to use both in our Python code, also in our basically what you use HTML file. Okay, so let me copy it in Sublime Text. So let me create a new file for it. File, new file. Okay, so here I have pasted it. Okay, so we'll see how to use it later. Now we are done with this part. Now we have a real-time database in Firebase which we can use. Now what we have to do is here, the next thing is, now the Firebase, the job with Firebase is done. we'll visualize it how it working, but that's a separate, we'll see this later. But for now, let's just go into our GitHub repo. There we have another file called gpssend.py. You open that file. It's almost similar, 2-3 lines we have added. So we need another library called Firebase. You can install the Firebase in the same way, pip free install Firebase. That's it. That is going to work. And Firebase is what you can say is basically the how we using Firebase library. We are going to use actually the Firebase, because to use Firebase there are many libraries to use Firebase actually, but Firebase is easy to use. That's why here we are using Firebase. It's very simple. So if you see here, we have to create a config file. Inside that we have all these details we just copied. So we are going to put all the details here. Then we'll create a Firebase object here, and then we are going to also create a DB object from the Firebase database. So the database we just created. Okay. And now one thing very important here. So you see, yes, another thing. So in Firebase, I created the real-time database first, then I copied then I created the app. This is important, because if you create the app first, you copy you copy all the config details. In that case, what will happen, as you haven't enabled your real-time database, it's not going to get this link. So if you see, there is a there is a database URL. So this database URL, you are not going to get it if you don't enable this real-time database. So at first you enable the real-time database, then you go and create the app and you copy the config file, copy the config details. Then only you are going to get this database URL. But this is very important, because that is the main thing we want. We just want that database URL so that we can fetch the data from the database, right? So yeah, here we are creating the DB database object, which name is DB. Now this part is totally same, no difference. Up to this part, no difference. Here only what we are going to do, we are creating a dictionary, which the name of dictionary data. Now in dictionary we have here lat and long. So lat is the key here, and the data is lat we just extracted, and lng is again another key, and lng basically the longitude is the value here. Okay. So key value pair dictionary, Python dictionary, very simple here. And then we have db.update. So we are going to update the database with the data. So what will happen is, let's say currently you have some latitude and longitude. You send that data to database will store it. Then after a few seconds you get another data, and then again you updating. So you are updating your previous data. You are not appending. It's important. You are not appending new data. Okay, you are updating your old data, because it's real time. So you will have only one coordinate, you will only going to have a single lat and single long. So that's why we are going to update the data. Okay. And finally we are printing data sent. So that's the only change we are having. So let me copy it and let me paste it here. So nano gps send.py. Okay, paste it. So here we have it. Now here what we need to do is, we will delete all this. It's going to take some time. In Nano we have few shortcuts, but yeah, it's not, we can just so yeah, here we have deleted. Now we are going to add the new keys, so which I am going to copy from the Sublime text. So here we have them. Let me copy it and let me paste it here. Okay, now here also you need to modify one thing. Let me show you that. So what you need to do here is, here you need to add these quotations around your keys. Okay, so if you consider this as keys and like those are as values, we have to add quotation here. Sorry. Yeah, and this is done. This is the only change you need to do. Remaining things are fine. Now we can simply save it. And now it's saved. Now let's run it and see if it's able to send the data or not. GPS send.py. Okay. So as you can see here, it's saying latitude, longitude, data send, latitude, longitude, data send. So that means sending the data. Now let's see if we are getting the data or not. Let's go to Google Chrome. Let's go to our GPS tracker. Here, let's go to real-time database. Now let's see. So as you can see here, we are getting the data real time. So as you can see, as our Pi is sending the data here is getting changed, update. Basically, it's updating. So as you can see, it's updating. Okay. So this is how it will work. So that's why it's a real-time database. Okay, it's in the data and it's updating in real time. Now as we have the data in our Firebase, now we can fetch this data to anywhere. If you want it in your web app, if you want it in your iOS app, if you want it in your Android app, wherever you want, you can just take it. Okay, this is as simple as this. And it's and another very good thing about Firebase is, so whenever you are actually updating the data here in our JavaScript, we can actually, so it's not that in our JavaScript we will just check after each second that if that data got updated, if that data got updated. It's not like that. So what we will do is, whenever this data will get updated here, automatically at that moment our JavaScript is going to take this updated data and going to put it in the map. It is like that. So here it is changing after, like, let's say each second, but maybe you are building an application where it's not changing after each second. It is changing after 5 minutes, 10 minutes, something like this. So next data comes 5 minutes, after that third data comes 15 minutes. So in that case, in JavaScript, it's not like that. You have to do like you check after each minute and when the data is, if it's updated, something like that. No, you don't need to do that. What you need to do, what will happen is JavaScript. So whenever this data is updated or is getting updated here, automatically from JavaScript, we will see how we'll do that, but we will know that, hey, yes, the data got updated, and then only we are going to fetch the data. So that's a very good thing of Firebase. As the Firebase part is done, now we have to talk about like how you can fetch the data from Firebase to our web page, and how we are going to use the Google API and all these things. Now we'll see. Okay. Now for that, if you see my GitHub repo, so there are two files, which is map.html and map.css. Now CSS is just for the styling. Now if you want to change the styling, you want to change the background image, you can do so. But I'm not going to talk about the CSS. So we are mainly going to talk about the HTML page here. Okay, so what things you need to change and how it's working and all the things. But before that, here also we need one thing, which is the Google Map API key. Okay, because here we are using the Google Map API. Okay, so let me open Google Map API, and if you just open Maps platform, the JavaScript API you are going to use. So let me just do get started. So you must have to create one Google Cloud Platform account. Now if you have a Google account, you can directly sign into it. Okay. After that, what we have to do is, after you create your account, you have to create a new project. So if you just go here, you see I already have created a GPS tracker project, but you can simply go here and create a project. You just need to give it a name, nothing else. Okay, you just need to give it a name and create project, and then you will get something like this you are going to get. So after creating the project, you select it. So for example, here I can see all these three projects. You have to select this project. So whichever you have just created, or even if you have an older project, you can also use that, no problem. Okay. So after you open that project, you will go to, so first you have to enable billing for that. Okay, why enable billing? If you don't enable billing, it's also fine. Okay, no problem. But if you don't enable billing, in that case, so if I just wait a minute. So let me open the web page for you. So if you see the web page, so this is the web page, map.html. Let me open it. So you can see the map here. Okay, but if you don't enable billing, what you'll see, you will going to see the map, but here it will be written like for development purpose only. So it will be a black layer.
Okay, not totally black. There will be like what I can say is like with 50% opacity, and then there will be written like for development purpose only. Okay, let me show you how it will look. So if I just change the code a little bit, so for example, if I just remove the key, then I can show you. I'm not sure if it's going to run without the key. You see, this is how it will look like. So if you don't enable billing, it will show like for development purpose only, and it is going to show this kind of layer. Okay, but the functionality will still work. You will still see the marker. You will still going to see the marker is moving around. Everything will work. Just it will be like for development purpose only. But if you enable billing, it is not going to happen. And enable billing means you are not paying. Basically, you are just starting the billing. But there is a free, I think first 10,000 requests are free. So if you are just building it for a testing purpose or small project purpose, you are not going to pay anything. But yes, if you are building it for like you are really building some project which you are going to use for regular life, then yes, obviously you have to enable billing and you have to pay for it. Okay. Now for that you can go for the pricing, but it's not that high. Yeah, so you can look into the pricing for that. Okay, so after that you can enable billing. How you can enable billing? You can go here, you can go to billing, and from there you can add a billing account. So you have to add your credit card details, and then your billing will be enabled. Okay, so here I have already enabled my billing, as you can see. So my billing account free. And one thing to remember, the Google service, if you see, go to the billing, enabled Google service, Google Maps platform, it should be selected. So whenever you are creating your billing account, you give your details. After that, there will be option where you can select the type of the service you want. There it will be either Google Cloud platform and Google Maps platform. You have to select Google Maps platform because you are using a Google Maps API. Okay, so you have to select that, remember. And then you create the billing account, and then whenever you are going to create a new project, that project will automatically going to take that billing account, or even if it doesn't take, you can go to billing and you can choose that account. Okay, that you can do. After that you go to APIs. Now here you have to click on enable API and services. Here you have to search for Maps JavaScript API. You can search it here, it will show you. After that you open this. And here you will have an option like enable API. You click on that and then API will be enabled. That's it. And then this page will be open for you. So if you go to, so after you will enable it, it is going to show you something like this. So dashboard, library, credentials, this option is going to show you. Okay. So you go to credentials, and there you have to create an API key. Let me delete my older key, so that I can show you how to create a key. Now don't use my credentials because I'm going to delete this API key after I'll just make this video. So here I have deleted this key. So you go to here, create credential, API key. Here a key will be generated for you. You can directly use it, but the recommended way is you go to restrict keys. So we are going to restrict the key so that this key only will be used for this Maps JavaScript Map API. You go to API restriction, you go to restrict keys. There you select Google Maps JavaScript API. So if you don't do it, it's also fine, but it's recommended that you should do it. Okay, because except that this key can be used for any API. So in future, if you just enable more APIs, this key can be used for them. But if you restrict it, then it can only be used for the Map API. Okay, so here I'm saving it. And sometimes you may see if you don't restrict, it doesn't work. For few people I have just saw like they said that it's not working because you are not restricting. So it's a good way if you restrict it. Then you copy the key from here. Okay, so now we have the key. You can paste the key somewhere because this key we need it in our HTML page. Okay, now you can go to my GitHub repo. You can copy this HTML panel CSS file. Now I already have opened this folder in VS Code. So this is how this folder looks like. So you have a map.html file. This is how it looks like. Okay. Now what you need to do, when you download this file, you will see it will be written like key equal to API key. This is how it will be look like when you download the file from GitHub. So it will be like key equal to API key and callback equal to initialize. What you need to do is you have to delete this API key part. Okay. So this word API key, you delete it. Now here you paste the API key you just copied from that Google console. Okay, so now here I have pasted it. So it will be like key equal to the key we have just copied and callback equal to initialize. This is how it should look like at the end. Okay,
Now you save it. Okay, and now we can actually run it. So let me run it and then I'll explain you how this code is working. So what I'm going to see here in my VS Code, if you're using VS Code, in VS Code you can actually download an extension called live server. So extension, you can search for live server here. Sorry, so this is the live server and you can actually download it. If you download live server, then what you can do, you can actually go to map HTML, you can just right click on that and you can like open with live server. Okay, something went wrong. Okay, yeah. So as you can see, this is how it is working now. Okay, so our pointer is pointing to this area. Now why this area? Because you see this is actually my location, because last time we ran our GPS send.py file. So in that time, in my Firebase account, my last location has been stored. That's why it's now pointing to my last location. Okay, now let me run the file again in Raspberry Pi. So let me run this Python 3 and the name of the file is GPS send.py. As you can see, it is sending the data. Now if we come to here, now you will see this pointer is moving. So as you can see, it is moving. Now obviously I am inside my house, so obviously it will fluctuate a little bit, so it's in static. So in basically the Raspberry Pi, I'm not moving the Raspberry Pi, but still you will see the pointer will move. This is because as we are inside home, the signal is not that accurate, so it will show you that it is moving inside my home in this way. So as you can see, this pointer is moving. Okay, so that means it is working just fine. Okay, and when we'll be outside, we can it will be like what I can say, below the sky, then in that case will be work with a better accuracy. Okay, so it is working just fine now. And whenever we are going to refresh, as you can see, it's in San Francisco now it's in my location, and as you can see again it has started. Okay, so whenever we'll refresh, all the previous data will get deleted, and again it will basically it is going to point the current location of the pi. This is how it will work. Okay, also you can just make it full screen from here in this way. Now I also showed you that you can open it on mobile phone or tab, anything. So you can open the HTML file from your mobile or tab, but again it's not a very good way. So what you can do is, so for example here, as I have just opened it with live server, what I can do is I can actually type my IP of this laptop in my, so if all my devices, my phone, tab and laptop is in the same, what I can say, in the same Wi-Fi LAN local area network, in that case I can just type the IP of my laptop and then this port 5500/map.html, and then I can actually access this same website from my tab and from my phones. Okay, and also if you want, you can simply host this HTML and CSS page somewhere, and for example in any web hosting platform, and then you can just you will be able to access this from public URL. Okay, that's up to you if you want to do it. Okay, so now we are done. Now let's talk about the code, how the code is actually working or not. Let's see. Okay, so now if you look into our code, this is how it looks like, the HTML code. Now I'm going to just show you the important parts which you may need to change in future. So here we are using Bootstrap for the basic styling. Here it is important, we are using these three JavaScript libraries of Firebase, which is Firebase app, Firebase auth and Firebase database. These three libraries we need to use. Here the important thing is the version. In future, if you get any issue with the version, you have to change it. For example, for now it's 7.20.0. In future, if you change, you have to change the version, nothing else. Okay. Window.lat and window.long we have already discussed about. This is the default location where your map will point when you will open your web page. So you can change it, and that will be a default one. Now here what we are doing, we are basically creating a map object. We are pointing to this default lat and long. We are centering to this lat and long, and we are creating a marker at that position, or you can say in this position. Here is the config file. Okay, so basically the Firebase config file here we have added. After that, here we are initializing all the things. For Firebase we are initializing. We are creating a reference to the Firebase database, and the variable is ref. And this is the most important part. So this thing basically, whenever your data, or you can say the lat and long values in the database will get changed, this portion will get triggered. Okay, and what we have in this portion, we have like, we are storing the values from the database. So snapshot.val, we are storing the values in a variable called GPS. Then from that GPS, we are actually getting the lat and long values. Okay, so inside our LAT and LNG, we will have the values from the Firebase. Now what we are doing, we are again basically using these new lat and long values. We are again centering the map, we are setting the position, and this time we are not and what we are doing is, here we are going to, there is a empty array at the very beginning. Here we have initialized called line chords. Now inside this line chords array, we are pushing this new lat and long. So each time we are getting a new point, we are pushing inside this line chords array. So line chords array will consist of all the positions, like all the coordinates in a particular session. And then using the Google Map polyline, we are actually plotting those points, all the points inside this array, and we are actually what I can say, draw a straight line between those points. And in this way, we are actually getting our path. So let me just show you what I mean by this is, so if you just, here if you see, for example, at the very beginning, we have a default position. So our map initially is pointing to this position, which is a default position. Our map is centering to this position and creating a marker on this. Marker means that that red marker stuff. Okay. Now, whenever we are getting a new point, we are adding that new point in an array. Okay, that line chords array. We are adding each and every point we are getting. Okay. And now what we are doing, let's say we got our very first point, we plot that here. We got our second point, we plot it here. Now after plotting the second point, we are adding a straight line between them. Then again we got a third point here. Then we add a new line between these two. We add a fourth point, add it here. Again added a new line. So in this way, each and every time we are getting a new point, we are plotting that, and we are adding a new line between this one and the previous one. Okay. So basically we are plotting all the points in that array and adding new lines between them, and in this way we are getting the path. Okay, so this is how this plotting thing is working, and that's why in a particular session means what, you open that website or open that HTML file, that's a session. So for a particular session, everything is saved here. So everything is saved, every position or location, or I can say coordinate, is saved inside that line chords array. And whenever you are refreshing that site, that line chords array is getting deleted. Okay, so and then so that's why you don't have any previous data in your web page. So whenever you are refreshing it, you are refreshing the page, you don't have any history data. Okay, and so if you are trying to, if you have planned to hosting it somewhere, in that case what you have to do is, you can also implement a button which can, where you can create a new session in your previous session. Also you can have options where you are actually storing your previous session data. That's also possible. You have just to in that case you also have to change, I guess in Firebase you have to change the structure, and in your front end you have to change the code a little bit. Okay, so that's a separate thing, maybe we'll do in future, but for now this is how this code is working. So even if you have any other question regarding this code, like how it's working, any other question, you can let me know in the comment section.
So this is all about this video, guys. I hope you have liked this video. Now if you still have any problem regarding programming or hardware connection, anything, you comment down, I'll try to help. And also there are a few things we can do in this project, like further we can do. So for example, we can add the history tracking also, maybe, and also there are a few other things also, like there can be improvements can be done, right? So comment me down like what other like improvements you need in this project, and I will try to make those things also in some future videos. Also currently I am planning to make a video on doing the same thing on an Android app. So you'll build an Android app from scratch where you can do the GPS tracking. So let me know if you're interested in that one also. So maybe I'll just make the video as soon as possible. So this is all, guys. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the very next video.